Hey everyone, it's Wowous. We're here with a Hearthstone video. We're going to be talking about this new blog post that came out today, Developer Insights, Class Identity, Hall of Fame, and new cards. If you like Hearthstone content, definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions or thoughts yourself, leave a comment. Now, Hearthstone has had an identity problem, which kind of this goes into that they need to establish class identities. There are certain things that a rogue should be able to do and shouldn't be able to do. The same with a mage, the same with a druid. And so what they did is they literally broke it down and they said, here are the strengths, which is really what the class focuses on. Here are the limitations, which are things that they typically don't do. And here are the weaknesses. Here are the things that they basically don't have and can't do. And it's kind of that rock, paper, scissors mentality of, so a druid has mana generation, giant minions, minion swarms, card draw, beasts, but it can't destroy big minions, it can't board clear. You know, and then you go down to Hunter. Hunter can go face all the time. It has secrets. It has death rattles. But it doesn't have very much good card draw. It doesn't have board clear, really. It doesn't have much in terms of taunt. And it doesn't really heal at all. So, you know, this is really the ideal of what these should be. Now, obviously, in the last couple of expansions, well, really the last... since Classic and Basic came out, the expansions have broken this a lot. A lot of these weaknesses have been overcome, and that's why you see, I think, certain classes all of a sudden become overpowered is because they don't have any of these. They have all of their strengths, they eliminate all their limitations and all their weaknesses, and all of a sudden you have a druid deck that can't be beat, or you have a rogue deck that you just can't beat. There's no way to stop it unless you build basically a counter deck to it. And it causes the game to become very unfun. And anybody that's played this knows. And I think this is the strength when you think, if you play, or you've seen played Magic the Gathering, right? Each of those decks, red, blue, black, white, green, have this built in. They each have pros and cons. And yes, there are times that some are more powerful than others, or certain cards counter each other, but you can play any of those colors at any time, more or less, in Magic. And that hasn't been the case here. There have been times where you cannot play Warlock, or you cannot play Warrior, and then there are times where they're the strongest in the game. And then it talks about here, neutral cards should extend the strengths to reach a specific goal of the deck or make up some weakness. However, a paladin can add, or for example, a paladin can add neutral murlocs to help round out the deck. A hunter could use a neutral card that gives a small amount of healing. But these cards should be lower in power level so the class can never overcome their weaknesses. And this has been a problem. This is the Ziliax problem, right? Ziliax is in 64% of decks right now. He has a 53% win rate. Why? Because he's got Taunt, he's got Lifesteal, he's got Rush, he's got Divine Shield, and Magnetic. So why would you play anything else? Why wouldn't you play Ziliax in a deck? At this point, I've got him in almost every single deck that I've got going right now, because he just basically overcomes, whether it's healing, whether it's destroying minions, whether it's going face. He doesn't go face necessarily as much, but he can wipe out minions pretty easily. And so they talk about here, now they've got to go on to address identity issues. They've got to take out the cards that are not matching this. And so the first two that they have found, which I agree with, are Vanish. Vanish is one of the most frustrating cards to play against in the game, in my opinion, because there's really no working around it. And Mind Blast. And they talk about here, Vanish it allows for too much removal. Rogue should have the ability to remove things either by killing them or by sapping them, that sort of thing, but not the entire board and not multiple times. And then you're comboing it with these freaking pogos that are going +1/+1 every time they come down. That was never the intent. And I think seeing this Vanish disappear is going to be great. And Mind Blast. Mind Blast is fine. I was never a Mind Blast priest player. It just never really fit the priest decks that I like to play, but I have definitely played against Mind Blast decks that I wish they didn't have Mind Blast, the ability. And it talks about this, a priest shouldn't be able to do that much face damage, and when you can combo it with spell damage, when you can combo it with some of the other stuff in the game, it makes it almost impossible. You can get one turn killed up with Mind Blast if someone's playing correctly and they have the right combos going. And so it talks about here, they're going to be replacing these cards. Plaguebringer here, give a friendly minion poisonous. Again, that kind of gets more to the root of what they were trying to do. It's a 3/3. It's okay. It's nothing special here, but it gives you that ability to remove another minion, more or less. And then Radiance, restore 5 health to your hero. I think this is a mistake. I think they should have just done Flash Heal as that card, because this is too specific. I think that 5 healing to anything would have been better. But it is what it is. But it talks about here, essentially they want to just give it a baseline heal in the basic set there, or classic set. And so they talk about here adding new classic cards. I think this is really important. They outline here, look, we took out Ragnaros, we took out Sylvanas, we took out Divine Favor, we took out Ice Block, we took out, and we added these, Play for Icicle, Tome of Intellect, which are fine. They're not particularly stunning cards. And then it says, basically as they move more and more cards and rotate them out to Hall of Fame, they have to introduce new cards. And now's the time, they said, to start adding more classic cards. And so there's gonna be a couple of them here: Siegebringer, Demon, Warlock card, 7/5/8 drop. Your other demons have +1 attack. I think this is fine for a rare. It has its purposes. There'll be stuff it will be able to combo with well for demons, and it fits the archetype of Warlock. Gift of the Wild for Druid, 8 cost, +2/+2 to everything, all your minions, and taunt. I actually really like this. I don't think it's necessarily overpowered. It's a very late game drop, but if you can get out enough stuff on the board and can give it all +2/+2 and taunt, that can be very powerful late game, and it's a common, right? So, it's not going to be overpowered, but it could work. There are decks that can make this card work, I feel like. Righteousness here, give your minions Divine Shield. I can see that comboing actually nicely with some of the different Divine Shield stuff that's out there. So not bad. I think 5 is a little bit much for that, but it does it for all the minions. So might get used. And then we got 2 new legendaries. Obviously some fan favorites here. Brightwing, add a random legendary minion to your hand. I'm not a huge fan of this at a 3/2, 3 cost. It's just kind of an RNG type thing. But I can see where it may have some uses, especially in like Soul Adventure, stuff like that. And the High Inquisitor Whitemane, which is summon all friendly minions that died this turn, sort of a low-key Kel'Thuzad. I think she's okay. I don't know that she'll see a ton of use, but where she's in Classic, she's never going to rotate out. So if there's ever an opportunity to use Whitemane, I think you may find a time to use her. And then you see here, we've got a couple cards here. We've got Baron, Stable Hand, 7 cost 4/4, not great. Summon Random Beast. I don't think that's a particularly great epic. 4 cost, SI7, Infiltrator, Battle Cry, Destroy an Enemy's Secret. That could be useful. I get really annoyed with all the secrets, so that could be fun to use in certain decks. And then Arcane Devour, whenever you cast a spell, gain +2/+2. I don't know. I don't really love that card. I don't think it's going to see a ton of play. And then it says here, they're not going to be rotated. We have to be very careful with the power level so they can continue to feel fresh each year. And I think this is fine. I think ultimately what they want to do is rotate out as much power as possible. But then the more I think about this, I'm like, that's really going to turn into a game for them of, well, now you have to buy the new expansions because the basic cards and classic cards stink. At the time, Ragnaros, Sylvanas, these cards were unstoppable. These were the Ziliaxes of the day. And then even Azure Drake, right, as a rare, which they didn't put up here, but maybe we can find it here. It's probably not going to show up until I go to Wild. Azure Drake, spell damage, 5 cost 4/4, spell damage +1, Battle Kai, draw a card. That was a must play in almost every deck, and it's neutral, right? So it's pretty much a must play. And now they rotate that out, but now you get these cards, and it's like, well, are you going to have to play any of these cards? Or any of these cards going to be at a 50% play rate compared to some of the other cards in Hearthstone? I don't think so, right? I don't think any of these are going to end up here in terms of percentage played. None of them are Mekaru. None of them are Leroy Jenkins. Leroy Jenkins, I think, is going to get the boot next Hall of Fame because he's just too high up here and he's too useful. And he's really the only legendary right now that's like that. Certainly, Tracking and some of these others, Unleash the Hounds, are used a lot, but they're not overpowered. And then if you look at win rate, right, like it's all these like Hunter, Mech Hunter obviously is doing very well right now. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's okay. I do think you're going to see that power creep to, well, you have to buy every expansion. You have to pre-purchase cards. But on the other hand, if they can get this game away from you have to play this rogue deck or a hunter deck, or you can't play this warlock deck right now because warlock is useless. That's going to be key. If it can be turned into more of a rock paper scissors game, that will be fun, I think, and I think it'll encourage players to continue to play in the game. But I think there will be a cost associated. I think the cost that people aren't thinking about is you're going to have to buy a lot more cards because the power level is creeping the wrong way on these classic cards. It used to be, the philosophy, right, was like, okay, you have all this dust, you want to make Ragnaros, you want to make Sylvanas, because you can use them forever, and you can keep them in your deck. And now, granted, I'm not saying that that's in terms of Hall of Faming, like, yes, you get all the dust back. That's fine. But what I'm saying is there isn't those. Like, who, if somebody was new to the game and said to me, hey, who should I craft? I would say Leroy Jenkins and Ziliax right now. But Ziliax will rotate out eventually. So you're going to lose that dust. And you look down the list here. Maybe if we just go to legendaries and look at the top legendaries, Edwin Van Cleef is a good card, but he's very much the combo card in rogue decks. If you can get him going, that's great. If you can't, then you lose. Harrison is fine. He can destroy weapons. He's pretty much a must-have, I think. And then are any of these otherwise? Like a lot of Snip Snip here and Khadgar. These were free giveaways, Alex Straza has its place in certain control decks. Blastmaster Boom is certainly good in the warrior decks, but none of these are really like, oh my gosh, you have to have, even Bloodmage Thalanos, who to me was one of the first legendaries I crafted back in the day because he had so much use. You see here, his win rate is pretty terrible right now. He doesn't get played an awful lot in decks. He's only using 5% of decks overall. So statistically, he's not nearly as good as he used to be. And it's not because he got nerfed. It's just because that there are so many other powerful cards that are better than him. So there really isn't that like, oh my gosh, you're a new player, you have to craft these. It's really like craft these guys up here. And, Dr. Boom is broken, basically. Ziliax is very, very strong, but they're going to go away. So I don't know that that's super helpful to a new player. For us, players who are buying packs every time that the game comes out, I think it's fine. I wouldn't, I'm not going to lose any sleep over this. I think overall it's going to make the game better, but I do think there are going to be some unintended consequences of this, primarily that piece of it's going to make basically this, am I going to craft these? I might craft White Mane. I probably won't craft Bright Wing. If I open Bright Wing in a pack, that's fine. It is nice that Bright Wing's a dragon, so you can maybe combo that with some dragon stuff, but I don't know. I don't need a random legendary minion in my hand that I haven't chosen in general. So yeah, we'll see. My thoughts here. Hopefully you have some thoughts about it. Leave them in the comments below, and I appreciate you listening to me here today. So thanks so much. Enjoy.